All right, singers, today on Choir Basics, we're talking about repeats, endings, DSs, DCs. If this doesn't make any sense, you need to stay right here. This will help you out a lot. The first thing we're looking at here is a repeat sign, and you're going to see these a lot. So this means that you're going to go back to a certain section and do it again. Now, if you just see the repeat sign by itself, you're going to jump all the way back to the beginning of the piece. But if you see a backwards repeat sign, you're going to jump back to that, and that will have you do that section again. And then you ignore the repeat sign the second time through. So you really only do that repeated section once through, unless it's marked otherwise in the score. So now let's take that to the next level. So we're talking about endings now. So these are repeat signs that have multiple times through a section, and you're going to do a little skip. So we're going to go through this piece, Shoshaloza, and we're going to do measures 1 through 5, and then you have a repeat sign, but it's within this first ending. And so you're going to take that repeat sign and go back to the backwards repeat sign that starts off measure 2, and you're going to sing through those measures again, but the second time through, you're going to skip from measure 4 to measure 6, and that's where the second ending is. So that you're skipping the first ending and going to the second ending. And you can even have more endings than that, but it's not very common. And now we're going to talk about DS al coda. DS means del segno. Segno is Italian for sign. So when you see DS al coda near the end of the piece-ish, you're going to jump back to the sign, and you're looking for this, looks like a percent sign, looks like a capital S. You know, it's very fancy looking, I guess you could say. And you're going to jump back to that segno or sign. And then at some point, it's going to tell you to go to the coda. So you're going to, from the sign, you're going to sing through until you see to coda, and you'll see this capital O with a cross through it. And that is going to be the jump point to go from where it says to do that to the coda symbol, again, later in the piece. So you do a jump to later in the song. So that's DS al coda. You sing through, you jump back to the sign, and then you find to coda, and then you jump to the coda. So let me show you what this means in a piece of music. So this is Man of La Mancha, and at the end of measure 64, you see DS al coda. And the publisher even included that you're going to jump back to page 2. So that's really helpful. And then on page 2, where rehearsal A is, it's also measure 6, you see the segno, and that's where you jump back to. So you were going to go from measure 64, hear me, and then once you get to the segno, you're going to do heathens, because you're already sang through the first verse, so now you're going to jump to the second verse and sing through the rest of the piece. Then when you go through, you're going to see that you go to the coda at the end of measure 20, and it says to coda, and you can see the coda symbol, and then you're going to jump to measure 65, where the coda symbol is, and that is how you get to the coda after you've sung through at least one time through. So you sing the DS, and then you go back to the sign, and then you find the to coda at the end of measure 20, and then jump to the coda. And that's a really tough transition in this piece because there's a big tempo change when you jump to the coda. You can see it says suddenly slow. All right, so the last thing we're going to talk about today are DCs. DC means del capo, and means from the head. So you go back to the beginning of the piece if you ever see DC al, and then it either says DC al fine, which means you go back to the beginning, and then you go to wherever it says fine, which means end, or it could say DC al coda, and in that case you go back to the beginning, and then you find the coda symbol and jump to the coda when it comes time for that. They're not used as often anymore. I don't see them a lot in choral music these days, but they do exist in older choral music and occasionally in new music as well. So you need to know what they are just in case you ever see DC al fine or DC al coda. All right, that's going to do it for today on Choir Basics. Hopefully you found all this stuff about repeats and DCs and all that stuff really helpful. And if you did, give it a like. And if you want to see more of these videos, click subscribe. And thanks to all my new subscribers. Really appreciate it. Thanks for getting the word out there. And if you know anybody else who could benefit from using Choir Basics, please send them a share. And we can get them involved so we can make more functional singers out here in the world. Thanks so much, and keep singing.